Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Laura, and I know on this channel I do book reviews. So in this video, I will be doing The Eternal Ones by Namina Forna, and so this is book 3 of 3 of the Gilded Ones series, and I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 star. And yes, that is a lot lower than the other two books star rating, and I will kind of explain why here in a minute. So let's dive in. So the reason, don't get me wrong, don't let the 3.5 star rating fool you, because yes, I did enjoy the book, and yes, I would be willing to reread it, just like I would be willing to reread the other two. But I will say this one was definitely, seemed to be much more of a, let's hurry and wrap everything up. Oh wait, I want to throw a ton of new crap at you type of book. And so, if this series was more of like a 5 or 6 book series, and she was wanting to use this book 3 as kind of like a transitional book into the second half of the series, then a lot of the things that I had issues with in this book would make a lot more sense and all that. But because it's not a series that has more than 3 books, I'm like, why did he put this in here? Yes, to wrap up the story and to get to the end, yes, we did kind of need to know a lot of this stuff, but I think the way she went about it was probably not the best, or probably not, yeah, that's probably the best way to explain it, is probably not the most or the best that she could have done this. And I have read a couple other reviews on this book, and a lot of people do agree with me in what I'm about to say, or they may have like a different like tweak to it. But all that to say is that I'm not going to just verbatim use those reviews as my own. I read those reviews before I read the book, so I kind of knew. Sometimes I don't like reading reviews before books, so that my own personal bias is not changed or anything by it. But obviously I did see that this book had a slightly lower rating than the others, so I was just curious and wanted to know why. And so, but after reading it and kind of thinking about it, I do agree. But yeah, so I did think that there were times where it did seem like it was rushed to a point to try and like complete certain parts of the storyline. And that she was just trying to complete those parts so that she could move on. And there were also at times moments where it did seem like a repeat. Like, for example, if you've gone this far in the series, if you've read it and you've read all 3 books, you'll already, or at least the first 2 books, first 2 books, you'll already know this. So this is not a spoiler. She did repeat multiple times, at least twice in this book. What she's already repeated multiple times in the first 2 books was how Keita's family, who he is Dekka's war partner, I guess you can call him. I don't remember the exact term that Forna used in this book, but he's pretty much Dekka's like war companion. And so, but she did repeat multiple times in this one how his family was sent, like his family is royal, but the current emperor from the first 2 books that ended up being defeated, how that emperor was afraid that Keita's family would usurp him and take over the throne and everything, how the emperor sent them closer to the Death Shriek encampment, and how the Death Shrieks took that as a threat and they killed Keita's entire family, but Keita was able to escape thanks to his father's tunnel that he had built underneath their house when they built it. And so Forna did keep on bringing that up and like going in depth, not like truly in depth about it, but like it kept on being brought up. I'm like, I understand that it was traumatic for him. I understand that. But like, we don't need to keep going back at it. But in this book, they do have to go back to that area in order to do what they're trying to do. And so, in that aspect, I get it. Why that has to be fleshed out in that moment while they have to go travel there. But, like, outside of that, I'm like, why? Like, we've already been told at least half a dozen other times, like, it was traumatic for him. Move on. Another thing, I both liked and disliked this. How Forna brought a whole new, like, terrain, especially in the first half of the book. We are transported to what in the first two books are called the Unknown Lands. And I liked the fact that there was new terrain that we were able to explore, and that there was a new, I guess you can say, new, like, area unlocked. But, like, I liked how in the first two books, how the Unknown Lands were, like, kind of referenced a little bit, and how we finally, in the first half of this book, were able to go explore it and, like, know exactly what is there. And that just the twist that one of their Decca's companions, I think his name was Lamin, how, like, they found out that he is what they call a godsworn, which is pretty much a helper or someone who swears themselves to a specific god in order to, like, help that god out. Like, I really liked the whole, like, how much she went into detail. Like, this is a both love-hate relationship that I was referencing earlier. Like, I both loved it and did not like it at all. How she went in heavy on, especially the first half of this book, how she went into just explaining and having them explore and, like, all that, pretty much the first half of the book, of, like, them finishing the journey of finding Decca's mom, which turns out Decca's mom was actually, like, how Decca had expected, dead, even though she thought that she was alive at the end of book 2. But it turns out she had died like she expected, or not as she expected, but, like, she did end up passing away after she was spirited away from Decca's home. And so, like, I both liked and disliked the whole, let's create a whole new world and explore it and stuff. Like, and then the second half of the book was definitely more of exactly like how I felt like it should have. The second half of this book felt a lot more like the first two books. Simply because they went back to the other islands of where they were exploring and were traveling throughout these other islands in the first two books. So it was definitely a lot more familiar and all that. And so I felt like the first half of this book seemed like it could have been its own little, whatchamacallit, like, short story. Like, it just felt like it could have been its own thing, the first half. And then the second half was for sure them pretty much being taken back to the main parts of their world, the other islands where they had been at, and just, it almost seemed like they came back to reality, I guess you can say, when they came back to the main parts of the world. And so, like, it definitely felt disjointed and kind of, I guess, cut in half. This book of, like, being jolted to somewhere new and then jolted back halfway through to where we had been before. So I liked that, and that, like, the whole, they had to be there in order for the story to progress. But at the same time, it was like, meh. It was, like a lot of people say, it was mid. But But I for sure would be willing to reread this book. I think it would definitely help in kind of, I guess, dissecting a lot more of what it is about. And I think if I reread through the entire series and took, I guess, more time with it, I think it would make a lot of things make more sense. And another thing one more thing that I liked but didn't like, I liked how, like, she, in the first half, how she, while they were in the unknown lands, how she had created, like, we know about the Gilded Ones and the, like, their brother gods. I'm forgetting the name of the male gods. But we know the Gilded Ones, which are the female gods, and then the male gods that had split off into male and female, and how they had their own pantheons and whatnot. And then I liked how in this one she had a whole new and completely separate, different pantheon of, I want to say it was 80 gods that were completely separate, and they created like a wall between unknown lands and the rest of the world so that they would not become like corrupted like the other gods and the actual like world that we've gotten to know in the books 1 and 2. Like, I liked that whole concept of they were able to watch it and see the world, but they were separate. But like having to learn, the reason why I didn't like it was because the whole, like, how I didn't like how the first half of the book was learning the whole, like, the new territory of the unknown lands and all that. I also didn't like having to learn about, oh my gosh, like, I had to learn all this new information about these completely separate, different gods than what I've been getting to know in the first 2 books. It's like, that was both cool, but also kind of frustrating. It was like, oh my word, I get it, move on, like, what, like, why? But overall, I did like this book, despite the 3.5 star rating I gave it. And so I would still, like I said earlier, I would still reread it, but that, because I gave this one such a, or not such a low rating, but like a lower rating, it definitely overall brought the series down a notch in my desire to reread it. But I would still come back to it, if that makes sense. But I wouldn't be as quick to come back to it as I would have in the past, before reading this one. And so, I still would suggest, if you like the whole concept of these books, I would still highly recommend it. And I would definitely say it is still some of my, I probably wouldn't say it was, in the past I would have said that this series was in my top 5 favorite series of all time. And I think I would still say that, but it'd probably be kind of on that, like, cusp of, like, maybe top 5, like, maybe position 5 or 6, maybe. So definitely still a really good series. I still absolutely loved it, but it has kind of gone down, like, notch-wise. But still, highly recommend the Eternal Ones, which is book 3 of the Gilded Ones Trilogy by Namina Forna. And so I still, again, would highly recommend this series, and I would say to check it out and read it for yourself if you think that they sound good to you. And I would absolutely love, if you have read this book, to hear your thoughts down in the comments down below. And I would love to talk about it down there with y'all. And again, if y'all have any other book recommendations, please also comment that down below. And if you liked this review, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see any other book reviews that I will be doing in the future. And I hope y'all have a good day, evening, night, wherever you are when you're watching this. And I will see y'all next time. Bye, guys.